You know how everyone says, watch your cholesterol? But does anyone actually know what that means? Like, can I still eat eggs? Is butter evil?
Basically, trans fat and saturated fat are considered not the healthiest of fats. They have this effect of elevating something called LDL cholesterol. It does predispose you to risk like heart disease or even a stroke.
What Malaysian dishes are secretly the worst for cholesterol?
Very difficult. This comment over the years, they say that we are Malaysians. How on earth are we supposed to eat healthier? Well, I'm from Penang. What do you think? Just because somebody needs to manage their cholesterol doesn't mean everything has to be steamed or boiled. We would still say you can eat them, but
you know how everyone says, watch your cholesterol? But does anyone actually know what that means? Like, can I still eat eggs? Is butter evil? Why do some people eat clean and still have sky-high cholesterol? Today, I want to cut through all that noise with an expert who has some of these answers professionally. And I'm going to be discussing this with a dietitian, because dietitians are the ones who actually train to translate your blood lab results into meals that hopefully can change some numbers.
and palatable too.
Sule, if someone's cholesterol is high, what's the first thing that they should change? Their food, their lifestyle, or to start medication? What's your take?
Okay. If somebody has high cholesterol, we're normally looking at 3 risk factors. So the first one is genetics, which is very difficult to change. But genetics is not something that is just the be-all and end-all, because how genes are also expressed are very much dependent on your environment. So if your environment, meaning your lifestyle and your diet, if your lifestyle is very inactive, then that is also a red flag. But if your diet is high in something we all call saturated fat, such as what you were saying earlier, butter, fatty meats, then if let's say there's a lot of not very healthy oils, then this is also a contributing thing towards high cholesterol.
Right. So would you attempt to change the diet first? If it's not a genetic issue, then you would attempt to change the diet or modify the diet, lifestyle.
Lifestyle and diet will always be the cornerstone anyway. Of course, whether somebody starts medicine or not, or this is between the cardiologist and also the patient. But so far, the studies have shown that in order to get to an ideal level, if your cholesterol levels are very high, to get to an ideal level, sometimes diet and lifestyle is not enough. You still need a synergistic effect of both.
Okay. Since you brought up fat, Sule, let's go through some true or false.
Okay. This is going to be rapid fire.
Rapid fire. Eggs.
Oh, the most controversial thing. Let's start with the most controversial thing. Okay. Eggs are pretty much a food that has quite high cholesterol. But somehow, when somebody has high cholesterol and they eat it, it doesn't have that much of an effect compared to if you were to have fatty meats. Fatty meats also have cholesterol, but they have a higher proportion of saturated fat. Eggs don't. Eggs have cholesterol and protein.
So it's a myth. That means if I have my char kway teow, the oil of the char kway teow is probably going to affect me more than the eggs of the char kway teow?
To simplify, probably in that way. But of course, there was a lot of studies done with eggs, and I hope you're not going to ask me so much about butter later on, because these are the 2 very controversial ones. There were some studies to show that if, let's say, somebody has a history of heart disease or high cholesterol, then having more eggs may not be that beneficial, may have a negative effect.
Right.
But if somebody doesn't have a pre-existing heart condition, then somehow the eggs, no matter how much you eat, didn't really have a very significant effect towards your cholesterol.
Is there, in that study, or any study for that matter, is there a safe number of eggs?
Okay,
or is that pushing it?
What I say today, the amount may not be correct in the next 5 years or 10 years.
Sure.
But generally, our recommendations is stick to 3 to 4 eggs in a week.
A week?
A week.
That's an entire week. I think I eat the number of eggs in a day.
But it's a very interesting thing. Humans, we don't eat nutrients. We eat foods. So although a particular food may have a profile that sounds like it's not very favorable, but eaten it as a whole, it has a different effect.
That's so interesting.
So, well, I mean, one of the things that they looked into was dairy. So dairy does have natural trans fat in it, but it's in a very small amount. Of course, there's trans fat in things like pastries. So, but when they look at a person who eats dairy products versus somebody who eats a lot of pastries, both have trans fat, but the effect seems to be more adverse in the ones who have pastries.
I see.
So it's about the types of food. So humans don't really eat nutrients, but they eat foods, and that's one of the things that makes nutrition a very difficult thing to navigate sometimes.
It is, because as you're saying that, my head's going ding, ding, ding. Oh no, I eat more than 4 eggs in a week for sure. Yeah. And I love my pastry, so I'm thinking like, oh dear.
Depends on what kind of pastries as well. So if they use a lot of shortening, then that's your source of trans fat over there.
Right. Yeah. So I want to unpack that a little bit. You mentioned saturated fat, trans fat. Do you want to, sort of explain that a little bit for our audience today?
So basically, trans fat and saturated fat are considered not the healthiest of fats. They have this effect of elevating something called LDL cholesterol, which is not favorable. If it's very high, it does predispose you to risk like heart disease or even a stroke if it's in excess. So these two, we try to recommend not eating so much of. Instead, what we would suggest is something more of the good fats with very long names such as mono and polyunsaturated fatty acids. So that's another group.
Right. Yeah. So the bad stuff is trans fat and saturated fat.
Yes.
And the good ones are?
The good ones, mono and polyunsaturated fat.
Mono or polyunsaturated fat.
Yes.
Right. Okay, we're done with eggs.
That took a long way.
That took a long way. This file is not very rapid after all. I'm going to go with the hard one next.
Okay.
On my list. Butter.
Okay. Asian diets generally don't use a lot of butter. So this is a good point. Butter has had its up and downs. Initially, people were saying don't have a lot of butter. So what people did was they replaced it with margarine. But margarine is made from oils that are later solidified. So in this process, it's called hydrogenation. When it's solidified, trans fat tends to occur.
Right.
So if, let's say, somebody has swapped it for margarine and they eat a lot of it, they may indirectly be adding on trans fat.
Okay. But butter in itself would be...
Butter in itself has saturated fat.
Right. So now we're going from one evil to another.
In a way.
I recall like probably in the 90s was when, in Malaysia at least, everyone was going...
For margarines.
No butter, move over to margarine.
Yes. Between the two of them, this is what we would normally advise our patients. Whether you're having butter or margarine, at this point, both will have
some negative effect,
some negative component in it. So in butter, it's saturated fat, but in margarine, you could find trans fat.
I see.
Okay, so if you prefer to go with margarine because it is made from, some of them will be made from olive oil, or some will be made from sunflower oil. Of course, these two are well known to being better fats, right? But because it goes through the hydrogenation process, they may have a bit of trans fat in it. Okay, so if choosing margarines, sometimes we will recommend choosing the softer ones because trans fat.
What's a softer margarine?
Because certain margarines, they are softer. Some of them are a bit harder in texture.
Oh, so it's the texture that you're referring to?
Yes. So because it goes from oil to a solid, right? So the more solid it is, we expect trans fat to also increase. So to buy the softer margarines would be the way to go if you're picking from that group. If not, some people will tell me that butter tastes better. Right. Hard to dispute because taste is very subjective also. So between the two, either way, you can pick either one, but the amount matters. So if you are having toast, for example, or kaya toast, we're not expecting to see butter at that slab kind of thing. So thin amounts, you're all right. So that's why I said luckily we're not really eating a lot of Western diet, because you might be cooking a lot with butter. If you swap it for margarine.
But with the springing of all the cafes, right? I reckon that the use of butter has gone up with pastries and things like that as well.
We, as a general rule, we cannot control what's out there. These are all foods that's available, but of course I can pick how often I eat or how much I eat. So it still comes back to a principle of between the two, if you can choose the healthier one, do so. But if both options are almost similar, then it's the amount that you can limit or the frequency.
Got it. Yeah. How about cheeses?
Cheeses.
Again, it's not hugely popular, but that's it. In Malaysia, the cheese slices are very popular.
The ones like in
and I shouldn't mention any brand
brand,
names,
right? Yeah, but I get what you mean.
Ones with the plastic,
the plastic ones.
Yes.
From our childhood.
From our childhood, yes. We worked out off camera. They were about the same era. And in comparison to, say, Western cheeses, which are the hard block of cheeses.
Yes. Okay, earlier on I was saying something about dairy. Dairy does have saturated fat. It does have a natural amount of trans fat. These things, we would still say you can eat them, but at a certain limit. So unless you're really going out to have cheese platters every single night, once in a while,
it's not going to make a huge difference.
Yeah. Whether it's hard or it's soft, it's almost the same.
Right. We'll go to the next one. It's much talked about, coconut oil.
This was going to come up eventually. It's a very interesting thing. Coconut oil does have a high level of saturated fat. We sometimes use it because it has the way that it's digested and absorbed is different. So this is where what I'm referring to is something called MCT oil, which is derived from coconut. So because of how it's absorbed, how it's metabolized, that's why people find that this might be a better option. Not untrue. Can still use, but it doesn't mean in excess. You are still, how we put it is, of course, choose the better fats, but at the end, it's still advisable to go on a lower fat diet if you want to control cholesterol.
Right. So all in all, ultimately it comes down to the amount, isn't it?
If we're talking about fat components, then it does come to amount. If, let's say, we want to reduce saturated fat and we would prefer to replace it with a better fat.
Yes.
So if we replace it with a better fat, it means replacing with that earlier what I was saying, the mono and the polyunsaturated fats.
What would some examples be?
So instead of using, for example, palm oil, something like instead of using palm oil, you can possibly go for corn, or you can go for sunflower or canola, which has a slightly better fat profile, meaning lower in saturated fat, higher in the good ones. So we're replacing something which has higher saturated with something a bit healthier.
I see. Yeah. And when you speak of these fats, how do these different types of fat affect the LDL?
Okay.
Or the cardiovascular risk?
Okay. So if diet is high in saturated fat, it has a tendency to increase your LDL, which is not a good cholesterol. If, let's say, someone were to replace saturated fatty acids with the healthier ones like olive, canola, sunflower, they have the ability to bring down the LDL.
I see. And from what I understand, there are three components to cholesterol. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know much about cholesterol. So we have a high LDL, which means it's bad cholesterol.
Yeah.
Low LDL, which should be too little of the good cholesterol. And then we have the idea of triglycerides.
Oh, okay. So usually in a blood test panel, we would see, at least for me and my dietitians, we would look at your LDL levels, which is the bad cholesterol, as you said. There is also the HDL cholesterol, which is considered the good ones. And then there is the triglycerides. So these are the three that we would see.
Right. how important in these three components, is it a holistic picture or is one more important than the other in terms of the data, the numbers that must be driven in a certain direction?
We will still look at it holistically.
Holistically.
Yeah.
And what foods actually lower LDL? I mean, we talk about fats, but how about things like fiber and nuts?
Yeah. So what we've covered so far is a lot to do with oils and fats in general, but there are other things that can help you bring down LDL. So nuts, research has shown that almonds do have a very good effect. Anything which is high in fiber, whole grains. So whole grains, brown bread, brown rice, these are good options. If we're talking about other high fiber foods, of course, naturally, your fruits and vegetables as well. So these can help bring down your LDLs.
Right. What about soy?
This soy is a very interesting thing. Soy protein has shown good effects in bringing down your LDL cholesterol because a lot of when I say recent, it means past 5 to 10 years, a lot of us are talking about using Mediterranean diet and also plant-based diets. So plant-based diets means we will be getting our protein from either soy, which is considered high quality protein, or we'll be getting it from legumes also. So people who consume more of plant-based diets, they have one of the biggest reductions in LDLs.
Wow.
So soy protein, there are other things inside soy protein also. So besides delivering components that help you maintain muscle, maintain immunity, the protein side, there is the other component which is phytoestrogens. So they are another component that can help you with heart health.
Right. So these phytoestrogens are a component found in soy protein.
Soy foods.
Soy foods. Yeah. So when we speak about soy foods, they would be like tofu, I imagine, tempeh.
Tofu, tempeh, tau kwa,
soy milk. So right. How about things like edamame?
Those are actually a very good lean protein source. So definitely, it does have fiber. It does also have all the plant sterols and phytoestrogens that are very beneficial for general health also.
Miss the truth. I was told that if you take oats, that would lower your cholesterol.
I always worry about this because sometimes it's like, can I give you a very straight answer? Okay. All right. Oats, very high in soluble fiber, which is definitely beneficial in helping you clear cholesterol from your system. Oats also have something called beta-glucan, which has been shown to be beneficial also for heart health.
Beta-glucan.
Yes. It's a component inside oats. So it's oats helpful. Oats is helpful as part of a whole diet.
Right.
So far, research shows that it's beneficial, but does it significantly bring down LDL on its own? In fact, it's not very big, but doesn't mean that we don't include it. I mean, it has other benefits too.
I see. Is sugar an issue for cholesterol?
Sugar. Okay. Just now we were going through the components, right? There was the LDL, there was the HDL, and there was this other thing, triglycerides.
Yes.
And the other little one in that family. If a person were to go on a low-fat diet because they wanted to control their cholesterol, but if their total amount of fat is replaced by carbohydrates, which are not the best, meaning if they replace it with a lot of sugary, refined, non-whole grain kind of carbohydrates.
Like white rice and white bread.
I'm thinking more of sugary drinks.
Oh, more sugary drinks.
Yes. When they replace it, then their triglycerides go up. So it has that tendency to have this effect. And generally, if you were to have a lot of sugar in your diet or non-whole grains, like this is where the white rice, white bread comes in. If you do have a lot of refined carbohydrates like this, you are missing out on the fiber. You're potentially, with the sugary drinks, you're also potentially bringing up your triglycerides.
Right. So say if a patient with high cholesterol were to see you in the hospital, because that's where dietitians work in the hospital, or if they were referred to by the cardiologist to see you, what would you? I know you would have to look at the blood test results, right?
Yes.
The liquid panel, the three things that you mentioned, the LDL, the HDL, and triglycerides level. But in a more generic way, what would typically look good or would be part of your recommendation for breakfast, lunch, dinner?
Okay. If, let's say, for breakfast, it really depends on whether a person prefers to eat out for breakfast or not.
Okay, so let's go with eating out.
That's going to be a bit tough. Fortunately, we are Malaysians, so that means we have a lot of choices to pick. Whole grain options for morning if you were going outside. If you happen to stop by any of your Indian or mamak store, you have chapati.
Chapati, yes. Right.
But of course, be a bit, don't go too crazy on
Everything's in moderation.
The dal there, okay?
Dal, right.
I mean, dal has very good legumes and
gonna
all
say
that.
that, yeah.
But I mean, not to a point of banjir, which is our
Banjir.
favorite. But you do have good options there. So you have a whole grain option. By the time that you go to lunch, if you prefer rice and dishes, of course you can pick, if you have the option of brown rice, pick that. But if not, you can always up your fiber with a lot of vegetables.
I see.
And then lean meats. Lean meats meaning nothing which is too fatty.
Okay.
So that we lower the amount of saturated fat. And then after that, don't forget your fruit. And if, let's say, you do go to dinner, you can get noodles, but noodles outside to get whole grain options is a bit tough. Of course, certain noodles, if you can get wholemeal, whole grain kind, or even red yeast rice noodles, these are all good options.
I'm glad you mentioned red yeast because that's the other one.
Yeah,
that's right. It's often,
Okay.
said that red yeast brings down cholesterol.
In a way, that is true. Red yeast rice noodles or red yeast rice, they do have a cholesterol lowering effect. There is something to be a bit careful about this though, because certain guidelines out of Malaysia, they do recommend not to go and purchase something like supplements or pills that are red yeast rice extracts, because the amount in there is almost equivalent to a statin drug. The effect is very similar to a statin drug. So I guess it's more of a interaction kind of concern.
Right, so
if,
it could contraindicate.
Yeah, so if anyone were to ask me whether these supplements would be the way to go, I would still recommend them to speak to their cardiologist just in case there's any interactions to be aware of. But can the supplements itself displace medication? I also would not dare to recommend this.
Fair enough. But the idea is that, to incorporate red yeast as a food on your plate would be helpful.
Yes.
You mentioned for lunch, if I was standing at, an Indian shop or mama, nasi kandar, or maybe the economy rice shop, and I'm looking at a whole range of dishes and rice to choose from. Is there a sort of a percentage of the plate that you would generally advise someone with a cholesterol issue, not the average person?
Easiest way to remember, I mean, it's now even prominent in a lot of our Ministry of Health websites. So if you go for a plate, half of it with veg.
Half of it with veg.
And then a quarter of it with your starches, preferably whole grains, and then the other quarter is proteins. So proteins, people have this impression that they need to have a lot of it, but of course, you see it's only a quarter of it, and choose lean kind of portions.
I see. So most of the food that we should be consuming really, it comes from the vegetables group.
Yes. So if you said going out, I recall getting this comment over the years. They say that we are Malaysians. How on earth are we supposed to eat healthier? And then sometimes I said that, well, I'm from Penang. What do you think? I think that's even harder. But the good thing is, over the past decade or so, people have been trying to look into Asian diets. Because all this while, we've been very much focused on the Western. Then we keep saying that, well, it's not that relatable, it's not that applicable, because we don't eat like them. So people started looking into Asian diets to see what is considered a good thing or a good pattern. So I think there was a group that came up with a study to say that there are certain foods in our culture which is considered very healthy because they're high in fiber. They're also lower in fat. They have a lot of herbs and spices where generally as an effect overall, it does have health benefits. So if we're looking at, just now you were saying, if I was standing at an Indian rice shop, banana leaf actually fulfills a lot of the...
It's my favorite.
Because it has a lot of veg and has legumes also, right? But if we were talking about Chinese, Hakka Lei Cha Fan.
Ah, right. The green rice.
Right?
The Lei Cha rice. Green tea rice.
That one.
So it comes with chickpea and...
Yes. So a lot of legumes, good quality proteins as well. Soy protein also. High in fiber. So that one is one. Even Malay also, you will have a good example, which is nasi kerabu.
So without the fried chicken.
Fried chicken. Grilled. Let's go for grilled one.
Go for the ayam bakar then.
But the whole concept of having that much of the vegetables.
The kerabu, yes.
Yes, and then the different spices that we use. So over the years, a lot of Asian universities have started studying the good effects of our herbs and spices without relying on
the Western way and just eating salads.
Yeah. So you're finding out all these things and it's great.
I like how you suggested, what really works in our Malaysian diet.
Yeah.
You went through that.
Yeah.
What Malaysian dishes are secretly the worst for cholesterol? Tired of doctors talking and not understanding what you're saying? Doc Health Asia cuts the fluff. Real experts, real answers, real access, so you can take control of your health.
You gave one example earlier, but I dare not say it.
Oh, right. I think I know what you're referring to.
Yes. There are many, because our cuisine is so varied, right? It's not just within Asia. I mean, within any cuisine, you will have something on the opposite side of the spectrum. So if, let's say, you are going out for a lot of fried items, things that use a lot of oil, I won't call them the worst. It's not very... it's not... I don't like labeling foods as either it's good or it's bad because...
It's about the volume as well.
We still eat anyway. Food is pretty much a quality of life thing after a while. And it's also a social thing, right? So whenever we can, what would make the meal not so complete is if, let's say, you're not getting the carbohydrates, the starches, you're not getting that much of the proteins, or if you're missing a lot of vegetables, then the entire meal becomes imbalanced. But is it the end of the world? You still have other meals. But here is where the catch-22 is. So if, let's say, I know that I've gone for a less than ideal meal and I know that I can make it up the next time, or if I was standing at a shop and I said that, well, once in a while, but once in a while to you, to me, to the next person will be very different. So often I tell my patients the best person to know how often would be you. But then unfortunately, the person who knows how to lie to themselves the best is also them. So monitoring is quite important.
We had another episode on mental health and emotional health, and we talk about how we need to be honest with ourselves. Now that we're talking about diet, we still need to be honest with ourselves.
Yes. Usually I will follow a 5-2 rule. If you're quite good on the weekdays, quite well controlled, on the weekends, it's okay to have what some of my patients like to call cheat days. But cheat days don't mean all out on portions. We still go by between, if I can choose what I can eat, then great. But if I cannot choose a healthier option, I can still choose how much I'm going to eat. So.
I like what you just said. If you choose what to eat, but if you can't choose what to eat, then choose the amount you eat.
Yeah.
That's very profound.
That's the most practical way. Because if not, we will not be going out of our house. Does that mean that I will be cooking for the rest of my life? You can, but it's not practical.
You mentioned starches with carbohydrates. And it's often now, everyone's talking about no carbs.
Yes.
Why is this starch? Would it still have a role to play on a plate?
Starches are still an integral part to provide your body with energy. How it affects cholesterol depends on the types of starches that you choose. So if I break down starches, basically starches would be your rice, your noodles, your breads. You would also have some starchy vegetables like potatoes and pumpkin. And of course, any other whole grains which we might be used to, things like quinoa, millet, are slowly coming into our diets. So these are all starches. They provide you energy. How we choose, like what type and also the amounts we eat can have different effects on your cholesterol. So for example, if I'm choosing whole grains compared to refined carbohydrates, white rice, white bread, the whole grains of course could help you lower down your LDLs. If I am picking something which is, this might be a term that a few have heard before, glycemic index, about how quickly our bodies can digest starch and also release it as energy. If it is something which is low glycemic index, low glycemic meaning higher fiber, whole grains. Again, your whole grains are all your low GI things.
Right.
These will also have a good effect on your cholesterol levels. It will help you lower your LDL, as opposed to sweetened drinks, sugary things.
I see. We're talking about two extremes here, but what if you were standing at the noodle stall, for example, and had to choose between bihun and noodles, mee and bihun? Is there a difference?
When it comes to the whole meal, it may not make a very significant difference. So if you're standing at the noodle stall, which is always a challenge, I always advise them that if you can get additional veg inside, that could make the whole meal better. And then make sure you do have added proteins inside, then your meal is complete.
So if you were to advise a patient standing at a noodle stall, tambah sayur.
Tambah tauge also can.
And what sort of protein can they tambah? Whatever that, depending on which stall you're at.
Yes. So if let's say it's quite difficult to find.
Let's take mee goreng. Oh, mee goreng is probably not a good one. Let's take mee rebus then. Would that work?
Mee rebus actually has lean proteins. They also give you boiled eggs inside.
Yes.
So not so much of the fried au kuah and the fried items, but then you can always pick an additional egg just for that protein.
Right.
And after that, a little bit more vegetable, either from the tauge or from
the green lettuce that they add on.
Yeah.
I see. All right. You touched on pumpkin. You mentioned whole grains.
Yeah.
But let's go to some of the other things. How about fish?
What about fish?
What about fish? For example, I mean, it's often said that salmon's great.
Yeah.
But again, that's imported.
You're talking about the whole assessing, increasing our silent prices after that. Deep sea fishes are most of the time recommended because they contain omega-3 fatty acids, which has been shown to have good effects on lowering your triglycerides also. So salmon is one of them. Tuna is also one of the examples of fatty fish. But just now when I was talking about how people are looking into Asian diets, we're also finding that there might be fishes locally that is suitable. So you don't always have to go for salmon.
Yes.
So you can always have, basically all fishes are lower in saturated fat. So in the first place, they are leaner proteins and they are also a low-fat option. So it makes them better than marbled meats, whether beef or pork, or even very fatty cuts of chicken. So fish is still considered a better, leaner protein option. You don't always have to have salmon. If you do have tuna, sometimes tuna in a can, if you're pressed for time, it's okay, provided that they are canned in water. If let's say you want to try our regular sea bass, this is also okay. There are also other local fishes. Kembung is one of them.
Right.
You can have mackerel, a local kind of mackerel. These are all options. So you don't always have to stick to expensive ones.
Great. So ikan kembung and local mackerel. What about stingray?
I don't know the profile very well for this one though. So
Yeah.
I cannot make a recommendation for
That's
it.
all right. I just realized that, the fish is quite rich.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if that would have a different profile. In terms of protein, you had fish, then you had chicken that's not so fatty, and then you have beef and pork. So it goes down in that order?
It actually depends on cut also. But when we compare the different cuts of meat, we found that saturated fats are a little bit more predominant in your pork and also for beef.
Right.
So for those, I'm not saying it's a complete no, but we definitely have to pick the leaner ones. So not so much of the marbled.
Not so much the marbled meats. How about alcohol?
Alcohol. Sometimes I have to ask which type. Earlier on I was introducing this Mediterranean diet, which is shown to be beneficial for heart health. So
What's in the Mediterranean diet?
a lot of fruits and veggies. They do have fish also. They tend to choose more fish than red meat. They also have nuts. And they do have red wine. So red wine, of course, it is considered as a group of alcohol. But somehow in red wine, there are other antioxidants, polyphenols, which through research studies, they say that it's good for heart health. But does it mean that I should be downing one whole bottle at night? And the answer would be no. If you are not somebody who drinks, let's not start. But if you are somebody who is already drinking and at a regular interval, then the amount, of course, matters. If it's a once in a while, that's fine. So that's for red wine. On the other hand, when we look at studies on another different class of alcohol, namely beer,
Right.
they found that for those who drink quite a lot of beer and in excess, triglycerides do tend to track up also. But if you do have a lot of beer, there's another side effect. Another side effect is actually increased weight. So
Because of the sugars in there.
it's a lot of calories when you go by per pint. So if a person were to drink a lot, then
Especially if it's happy hour.
yes. So that one is more of amount. So in terms of alcohol, we also have different classes. So the most well studied has been red wine. There are studies that support beer is not too great for your triglycerides when it comes to an excess amount. Hard liquor, I don't have the answer.
That's no license to go heavy on hard liquor though.
Yeah. Generally, if you don't drink, it's advisable not to start.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And well, with surveillance, right? So you've recommended the patient on what to do for breakfast, lunch, dinner. How do you monitor to see if the diet's working or your recommendations on the right track or not?
Okay. In our clinics, normally, if we were referred to someone who needs some diet advice or lifestyle advice for cholesterol, so we would ask them to still come back after about 3 months. If they have blood tests, we can compare it with it. We can compare the blood test between 3 months. The longest I've seen is 6 months. The cardiologist would send them for a blood test, and then I'll relook into that panel again, the LDL, the HDL, and the triglycerides.
So the panel will be just these three things that they need to look at. Are there any other?
If it is to do with managing your high cholesterol, then these are the three that I would focus on. Of course, there would be other things like there is one more little line at the bottom, which is your total cholesterol and HDL ratio. So we would still look at that because the number on that will also determine your risk for heart disease. I realized one thing though. I didn't really. We were talking about how to bring down LDLs and also what could possibly affect triglycerides. Then after that, there was not much about how to bring up the good cholesterol.
Right. Okay, let's go there. Can we actually do something about it from a diet point of view?
It can do something from a lifestyle point of view.
Lifestyle. And what would that be?
Exercise.
Oh no!
We are largely quite inactive, actually. Even though a lot of us have wearables, but then we're not really meeting the targets. So exercise is actually one of the Well, can I say easiest? I would think some people would debate whether it's easy or not, but exercise is one of the ways to bring up your HDL.
Right. What defines exercise? I mean, I'm watching television and swinging my arms.
Okay,
Is
that one is
exercise?
not exercise. A little bit of movement is better than no movement at all. But in order to make it count, we are looking at aerobic exercise, meaning any brisk walking, if jogging and running is not your thing. Low impact can be something which is like cycling is one of them, or you can even tread water in a pool because most of us are living in condos. So you can still, if you have any knee problems, you say that I can't do exercise, I can't walk for long, you can still tread water. So recommendations is still at least 150 minutes a week.
150 minutes. So if I had to divide that by, say, we go by the 5-day work, 2-day cheat day, right? 30 minutes a day
30 minutes.
of exercise.
At least 5 days a week.
And does your heart need to be to a certain range to be considered exercise?
If let's say you don't have anything to monitor, the best way is you can still talk, but it's in very abbreviated kind of sentences.
So I need to struggle a little bit. I couldn't have a full conversation and gossip about the day.
No, you cannot have a very smooth gossip about the day, but you can still talk as you go. Right. So the thing is, one of the keys is also to hold it for at least 10 minutes, like 10 to 15 minute blocks. So it's not just like walk for 5 minutes and then you call it a day. So you still have to get your heart pumping.
So you're saying that it could be 15-minute blocks, but maybe twice a day? Is it because you mentioned 30 minutes?
30 minutes in a day, but best is your entire session, you should still stretch it to at least 15 minutes.
I see. And that would raise the HDL.
That would be one of the ways to raise your HDL. One of the more effective ways to raise HDL.
Right.
Because it still comes back to a full circle. Like what would predispose somebody to high cholesterol heart disease? We're still looking at genetics, lifestyle, and diet.
So that would be the lifestyle component. The diet we've gone into.
Yeah.
Genetics?
Very difficult. Genetics is probably not something that I could give very expert opinion about, but then there are certain what we all call gene mutations that do tend to predispose people to higher cholesterol levels. Does that mean that that's the go big or go home and you don't do anything else about it? I wouldn't suggest so. Even if you do have that genetic predisposition, if let's say you do not control or you do not do anything about your lifestyle or diet, who knows what's the upper limit that you can reach?
Sure.
Yeah.
When I said I was going to be speaking with a dietitian, I think the question I go, what does a dietitian do? And in this case, if I knew I had high cholesterol, at what point would I seek the dietitian's help?
We basically try to navigate the amount of science that's out there and translate it into something which is practical, at least, or something that's doable. Often I would tell my patients and my clients that the recommendations I can give you is as long as from here until to mainland or even KL. But I do have to work with them on which is most feasible. And then, of course, we have to weigh the pros and cons to say which one is more pressing to change so that we can see positive effects on your profiles.
Would it have to be like a real problem on a profile where I'm meant to be on statins already before I see you, or should I come and see you when things are generally going high in the wrong direction?
When things are starting, that is one way. Even if, let's say, some of your readings are showing red or there's an asterisk there, but you're not on statins, you can still see us because it's more of a lifestyle thing. But if you are wondering whether the diet advice and the lifestyle advice could possibly prevent you from going on statins, then I would usually say upfront that at the end, to get to an ideal level, there might be a need for statins, but of course that's decided jointly together with your cardiologist.
I see. I want to come back, circle back to what we talked about earlier. The fat seems to be a big topic, right? And you spoke about butter and margarine, and we talked about coconut oil. We didn't cover ghee, and there are lots of other oils there. We talked about the volume to be used. Cooking, right? the oil is used in everything we cook,
Yes.
in our cooking every day.
Yeah.
Is the dietitian's recommendation to go towards sunflower, canola, and olive?
Olive oil is not a must. It's a great option, but we know
It's more expensive than the others.
there is that. And then sometimes, because olive oil, when dietitians conduct supermarket tours also, I noticed that one of the longest questions, extensive questions, always revolve around the olive oil section. Like, which one is better? Because when you go to that section, there is still, which one do I choose? Extra virgin olive oil or something. So that's
As I understand it, you don't cook with the extra virgin, and then you cook with the...
You can cook with the regular olive oil.
Yeah.
So is that always a go-to that a dietitian will recommend you? It will be one of the options, but it's not a must. So there are other oils with good profiles. Good profiles meaning lower in saturated fat, higher in the mono and polyunsaturated fat. So sunflower, there is canola, there is rapeseed oil, rice bran, soybean.
So rice bran oil is
It's also
a good oil.
Yeah, it's also one of the better options. My advice is, if you're still using oil to cook, let's not pour the oil by the barrel, even though it is a good one.
Yeah.
You still use it to a sparing amount. You can also try other cooking methods, actually. So just because somebody needs to manage their cholesterol doesn't mean everything has to be steam or boiled. I believe that can get quite boring. Stir frying is fine, grilling is fine, baking, or sometimes you just sit. But panggang is grilled lah, so we can still try these other options other than deep frying. There are other textures to explore other than deep fried foods.
So I like how you've covered, the what we eat, how much of it we eat, and how we cook is also part of the equation.
Yes.
Because deep frying is a no-no for people with high cholesterol on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Once in a while.
Honest once in a while.
Honest once in a while.
Yes.
Yes. Honest in bold,
Yes.
italics and underline.
Yes.
Preference would be to steam or to boil, but otherwise you could go with stir fry,
is okay. Yeah.
grilling, baking,
Yeah.
roasting.
Yeah. So many different options.
Many.
You can do.
I see. Now, here's a question we ask all our guests, just to wrap. What's been your most transformative reset from your journey as a dietitian? A moment where you had to fundamentally rethink what you thought was you knew or what you thought to be true, and what you learned from that experience.
Wow, that's a very, very deep question that requires a lot of time to think. It's really not just when you start, or when at least when I started out as a dietitian, we used to think that it's very black and white, but it's not. So as we go through the entire career, we start to meet different people, we start to understand how food actually shapes people, and then we see how it affects them culturally, socially as well, and then just really learning that sometimes what you think is correct, it cannot be applicable to that person. So it was a lot to do with learning preferences of people, how to coach them, how to navigate the science, bring it to them, how to sort of give them practical solutions. So this was very different from when I first started, because when you first started, everything is like, oh, that's like this.
One size fits all.
Yes, one size fits all, but that's not the case, because there's so many things to explore.
So now it's a very personalized approach.
Yes.
In a dietitian's work.
Yeah. So understanding food preferences is one, understanding eating behavior also, understanding how food affects them, and then how do we motivate changes to be better, to be healthier in the end. So this is one of the biggest challenges. It usually takes a while to sort of learn the ropes, to understand how to see what is verbally said and not said. So it's a skill that they don't teach you in school.
Sure.
This is something that you learn along the way.
Right.
When I first heard of this profession, my sort of like the thing that stood out to me was to do sports nutrition, because it looked like it could have a very beneficial effect, because how you eat would translate to how well you train and then your results later on. So that was pretty much what got me interested in the first place. But after that, when I did internships in a clinical setting, then that was when I started to see that, learning about nutrition is not just learning about food and its effect after that. In a clinical setting, I also had to understand how things work medically, pathophysiologically, how food can play a role. So, for example, one of the first cases that I got really into was in a gastro surgery kind of case. So, when you have surgery done, certain parts of your absorption and metabolism is different. And then suddenly it's not just about what to eat to get better. It's about, can you tolerate it, or how can we make it better? How can we accelerate your healing? So that completely switched how I went from, let's go to sports, now let's go to clinical side. So that was one of the changes that just went the other way for me.
Yeah, so that sort of resets how you saw the dietitian's role and how powerful.
Yes, that it's not just about sports performance, but just helping a group of people that at that point is most vulnerable because of whatever conditions that they were going through, and then just helping them heal a bit better, faster, and then they get to go home. So completely the other way.
That's a great reset. Sule, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been very insightful and fun. If today's conversation has sparked some thoughts in your head, share it with us by leaving some comments below. We want to keep having honest conversations like today for you.
This episode reflects personal views and recollections at the time of filming. Its content is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult a qualified healthcare practitioner to address the concerns you have.